fine. Blowing up like dynamite, I never meant to make you cry.
Hello and welcome to a very special edition of This is Ibrox, your Rangers podcast. It's me, Scott Paterson. I'm joined tonight by Tommy McIntyre, and we're joined by two very special guests from Rangers Football Club. We're joined by Natalie Nairn, Partnerships and Projects Manager with the club, and we're also joined by the Supporters Liaison Officer, Greg Marshall. Really, really pleased that you guys can join us tonight. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you for having us. Yeah. It's always a great opportunity, and appreciate the time to run through some of the work that the club's doing at the moment.
Thanks very much, Natalie. So, a couple of things that we want to speak about tonight. There's two huge anniversaries that we know are coming up just around the corner. Firstly, I want to lead with the MyGers initiative, Natalie, if we can. Tell us a little bit about that for any supporters that perhaps haven't enrolled in that already. Give us a chapter and verse.
Yeah, so thank you. It's MyGers is the club's membership programme. MyGers is all about helping fans feel always Rangers, always rewarded, and what that looks like is an exclusive range of discounts, experiences, benefits and access that MyGers members can receive by signing up and being part of the MyGers family, so to speak. So one of the really exciting things that we can talk about this week in regards to MyGers is MyGers Weekend. So this weekend we're doing our first discount for MyGers members to use in the Rangers store. So MyGers members today will have received a unique code for them to receive 15% off a £50 minimum spend. That can be used online, which I know is particularly useful for fans based abroad who can't make it to the new stores that are now based in Glasgow. So that's an example of the type of discount that we offer with MyGers, and that was something certainly when we did fan feedback, fans said, that's the kind of thing that they're looking for. So the retail discount, we also have the discount in the Argyle House restaurant as well, which is great. And MyGers is also about helping fans feel closer to the club. And that can mean lots of different things and different things to different people. But for non-season ticket holders, MyGers is a way to access experiences and opportunities that were previously only available to season ticket holders, which, when we started the research and the planning around a membership scheme, one of the big drivers was non-season ticket holders saying to us, unless you are a season ticket holder, you sort of feel a bit out the loop with the club, and you're almost a season ticket holder or bust. So, which can be quite difficult, particularly for international fans who want to feel a kind of more official connection to the club and still find a way to access benefits and loyalty mechanisms and so on. So MyGers is also something that we were inspired by other clubs and how they use it as a fan engagement tool. And there's MyGers also has an important role in the success of the club as well. And I guess one of the things I'd love to take an opportunity to say is thank you to the existing MyGers members who have signed up so far, and it's fantastic to see the number of fans who have signed up. It's been a phenomenal response, and I hope the members who have signed up so far, I hope you've been able to enjoy some of the benefits and exclusivity that we've been able to provide. But I also hope those members take pride in the fact that by being a MyGers member, that membership revenue is something that goes directly back to the club, and it's something that goes directly into first team improvements and first team investment. So MyGers is very much about delivering benefit to the supporters, but the benefit that MyGers drives for the club is huge, particularly in a very unusual environment that we are in right now, where a lot of other opportunities for the club to create investment for the team are not available. So MyGers came at a very fortunate time for the club, that it was a new channel for us to enable investment.
So, Greg, I think listening to Natalie there, it's obviously something that is, I think in the first instance, very, very importantly, really well supported by everyone within Rangers Football Club.
Yeah, look, MyGers is something that the club fully believes in. It's not been done half-heartedly. We, myself and Natalie, the rest of the team involved, it's every section of the MyGers project was thought over once, twice, three times, debated about, argued inside. We took it to fans' feedback groups where we had over 20 in Ibrox. We went to Northern Ireland for a feedback session. There was obviously the wider surveys and like that was done. Like we have really embraced the MyGers within the club, which I think is really, really important. And it was something that when we decided to do this, I was really keen on that being the case, because it'd have been easy enough to slap £20 on the away scheme and say just join that and that's fine, and it would have earned money and people would have bought into it because the tickets are there. But the reality is Natalie's right, is we had a gap in the market where we had fans spending hundreds of pounds and fans who would love to have been in the situation to be able to join up and be a season ticket holder but just couldn't be because of circumstances, and that doesn't make them less of a fan because they're not able to be in that position. And it's a good way of trying to get that merge between the both. But it's been really encouraging, and as Natalie alluded to, this year's not been the ideal year to launch a membership.
No, it has not.
If we had to pick our timings, we wouldn't have picked this year. But the reality is that because we went this year and we were in a situation where everything was ready to go, we pretty much had to go. All the changes were made, the whole system was ready. But the reality is that we went with that, and the fans have backed it. I mean, we've over 26,000 fans joined us during a global pandemic. It's incredible. And as Natalie alluded to, that investment that the fans have made is went to improving first team facilities and players, and like we're lucky enough that we've seen Ross Wilson allude to this in a message to MyGers members this week, saying that every penny invested in MyGers helps him do his job and helps the guys in the first team squad like do their job. Like, and that, let's be honest, that's what we care about as fans, isn't it? Like,
of course
we be good. Now, obviously, we say that in ensuring that Rangers achieves the level we want it to achieve off the pitch as well. And I think I've been at Rangers 3.5 years now, and we're making great strides in that regard. But ultimately, none of that matters if on the pitch isn't good, because we're Rangers. Rangers is winning, right? Yep. Anybody that thinks you can come to Rangers and winning's not anything you talk about, like, I'm not being funny, we're staff members, we talk about winning every day. And the vast majority of Rangers staff are obsessed with getting the first team where they are. That's why we joined Rangers in the first place. They feel like you're making that small contribution to getting there. And look, the reality is, and it be as blunt as it is, see the contribution fans are making right now. Season tickets, MyGers, Rangers TV, all those kind of things are moving towards it. But specifically around this, it's been said by the board, MyGers helps the first team, and that's a fact. I know that's a hard sell, guys, and I'm going in heavy at the start, but when it's that black and white, like. If you weren't sure about it or thinking about, okay, I'll do it at some point, well, look, this is a perfect weekend for it. £5 off the MyGers as well this weekend, isn't it, Natalie?
Yeah, so as part of our MyGers weekend, to coincide with the 15% off discount in the Rangers store, we're also offering £5 off all new membership sales as well. So in purchases, so whether that's you're buying the junior one or the adult one or the global one, there's £5 off all of the packages that we offer within MyGers for this weekend only. So yes, it's a great time to join MyGers and hopefully increase our numbers and make MyGers continually stronger as well. Because I guess
one of the important things as well for this weekend is that any new members who join in will be sent that discount code as well. I think that's some work that's went on with the MyGers team that's been really, really good, because that's so that anyone feeling like now's the time to join, they're not going to be left out and miss out on any of the opportunities that my current MyGers members are getting. So I think that's really, really important to underline as well.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy,
a quick question there. So, I mean, all that's extremely positive, and it's a narrative that absolutely should be out there, and it's great to hear that there's direct investment from the MyGers into the playing squad, and the fact that there's been such great uptake, not only in the first tranche of memberships, but even the MyGers interaction. I think something like 10,000 members voted on the Tartan that was picked, for example, that was put out quite recently, and rather flattering pictures of Derek Johnson. DJ looked great in a kilt. But I suppose we've touched on that global pandemic dynamic as well. And, I'm sure there's been implementation challenges as well. No system goes in without anybody challenging it. But I'm really interested as well, considering there's the push for more MyGers, quite rightly, to have that loyalty programme. Could you possibly, and Natalie, I'm maybe looking at you here more so than Greg at this moment in time, give us an idea of what the next iteration of MyGers looks like? What's the idea to develop this and make it even more interactive? Because I think we all feel that it's one of the strands of the closer strategy between the fans and the club at this point in time, which can only be a positive thing. So can you give us a flavour of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, the global pandemic's a big dynamic in things at the moment, and certainly once restrictions start to lift, the availability of experiences and interaction that we'll be able to offer through MyGers is something that we can be really excited about. Before we launched MyGers, we had planned in this summer to do things like an open training session for fans to come along to, which sadly we weren't able to do. So things, we do believe that they will get back to normal, and that's the type of experience that we can offer, really taking up some of the experiences like mascot places, flag bearer places, all these things that feed into like a match day experience. There's also things that we're having to do in a very socially distant and restricted scale at the moment, but things like we had a couple of MyGers members along this week to recreate the Kamar roof goal on the pitch at Ibrox. We could only do that with 3 people, and it was very restricted in terms of interaction. But once those restrictions lift, being able to do a lot more in that space will be fantastic. And once we can do more with the first team playing squad from an interaction perspective, that will be a big boost to some of the interaction we can have with that as well. So I think you're spot on that we need, we're always thinking, what is the next iteration of MyGers and how can it evolve? And some of that will be experience-based, which I've touched on there, and some of that will be how we change the dynamic around the loyalty programme as well, because it's been a very strange situation that we've created MyGers points for the purpose of helping to allocate tickets, but we don't have any tickets at the moment. We don't have any games, so naturally, in some ways, we've outlined a lot of principles, and those were things that it was fan insight and fan feedback that have got us to the current place. But we're very open-minded and receptive to feedback that elements like that may need to adapt. And already with some of the feedback we've received from fans, some fans have asked for travel club points to be looked at again. Some fans have suggested that would it be worth us having an additional loyalty tier within MyGers? At the moment we have gold, silver and bronze, but should we have, for example, a blue tier, that captures a different level of points and allows us to do things slightly differently? So with all of that in mind, very soon we'll be doing a MyGers survey that will canvass opinion on how MyGers has performed to date. So it's an opportunity for fans to say what they like, what they don't like, what they'd like to see added to membership. We'll also test some of those ideas around how we maybe change some of the points mechanisms. And then we'll also use it as an opportunity to ask kind of more general things like, welcome packs. Was that something that was that a good benefit this year? Is that something we should repeat next year? If we do, was the scarf and the presentation box and badge, was that good, or should we do a scarf again next year that's anniversary themed? That survey will be a good opportunity to get lots of fan feedback. And we've done lots of face-to-face groups, and we will continue to do those because they're really good and you get into a really good level of detail. But I think now that we have an active MyGers community and database, we can go directly to the members and say, what can we do differently, and what's working well and what's not. So, but we're always going to look to evolve MyGers. We're very honest when it comes to MyGers in the sense that we're very proud of how it looks at the moment, and we're very bowled over by the response we've had so far, and in the main it's been very positive. But it was never going to be perfect or the finished product on day one. We'll always need to adapt, and as we should with everything as a club, but particularly with something like membership, which is new. So feedback will be central to how we continue to develop MyGers.
I think it's a good thing to just to lean on the Tartan. Tommy, you've mentioned obviously a Tartan there with Big Derek modelling the new kilt this afternoon. I've actually not long looked at it on social network. Really, really nice. Like it. Really like it. The last time that Rangers had a sort of Tartan themed kit, they were manufactured by someone else, and I remember having the sort of Tartan top and shorts. Tommy, you're ages with me, so you probably had something similar. And I remember thinking that's really unique. But I think for our overseas fans, I think to have that sort of Tartan identity with all things Scotland, I think it's a really clever road to go down by the football club for this season.
That's good. I'm so pleased that you like it and the other fans like it, and it was great that MyGers put input to it. Rangers have had a lot of nice tartans over the years. This one is aligned to the new Ready Crest that launched in the summer, part of that evolution. So the blue is a really strong Rangers blue, the red and the white have been tweaked as well to match the new crest. And it was time for us to change the tartan. We have had people say, why did you change it? But there was other reasons linked to that as well. We go through design patent processes where we need to renew and refresh those every so often. So the time was right to have a new tartan, and it's fantastic seeing it on Emma and Derek. It looks brilliant in terms of the outfits, and I think there's definitely scope to have more tartan products, whether that's scarves. There was even face masks you can now get in tartan.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very much the world that we live in, but and there's been a lot of people that since it launched today have been saying, like, where are the tartan carpets, the curtains? There's so much we can do, because we're very lucky. Like, the colours of Rangers are beautiful and they lend themselves really well to different patterns and designs like that. So yeah, it was a great launch to get over the line.
I look forward to my tartan bonnet in the post at some point. So I definitely need it. This hair is absolutely disappearing rapidly. To be honest with you, I wouldn't.
Don't even go there, Thomas. Do not even go there.
You're the before and after picture, obviously. But I'm just before Shane Warne wanders on and tries to get to do laser surgery. But I suppose just for both of you there, from Greg from a supporter's perspective and Natalie from, let's say, more of a club business strategy perspective, what's been the takeaway, or have you seen with the uplift of MyGers, the really positive steps the club has taken from an engagement perspective, the extremely positive steps the club has taken in terms of professionalising the women's team and being a driving force, the first driving force in Scotland for that? Have you seen, one, a difference in the dynamic of some of the supporters and the focus on that type of thing? And two, has that changed some of the dynamic of what would have been the natural expectation of who was joining MyGers? I'm thinking particularly from a foreign element as well, of fans across the globe.
From my perspective, I think currently with what we've done, the majority of membership I've been dealing with is standard Rangers fans have always been dealing with. Like, I think the core of our membership in MyGers are just your genuine normal Rangers fans who are feeling like they're contributing to help the club. Now, that's not to say that it's not brought in additional insight that otherwise they wouldn't have felt empowered to do. I think that's been a real positive with this, is that people now feel like the club's open to listen, and I think that level of fan engagement is something that I'm certainly trying to use to leverage within the club to ensure that we have, as a fan base, that sort of relationship with the club where it's very open and transparent. But as I say that, I'm very lucky in the sense that we have a board that's full of Rangers fans that broadly understands the Rangers fan base. So there's a lot of SLOs at different clubs who have a much harder time of that than me. And we've even got an executive board that work with myself and Natalie from a office perspective, and every one of them's open to listen. Like, if I wanted to go speak to Stuart Robertson, I phone him right now, we'd take a call. James Bisgrove, Andrew Dixon, every single one of them's open to listen, which again, I'm lucky and privileged in my role that we have people there who listen to the fans and care about the fans' thoughts. Now, that's not to say every single decision they do and make is one that the fan necessarily agrees with, but my job isn't necessarily to make the club do things everything the fan agrees with. My job's sort of make the club consider the fan within their decision making process. And again, I'm lucky and privileged that, broadly speaking, before I make that phone call or chat that door, it is part of that process, or I've been getting engaged earlier and spoken about. So that's probably in a way that I'm privileged and lucky in that sense, which allows me to speak to our massive sort of wider fan base and get all the different feedback that comes in there. But like the Rangers fan base is so broad. They see every opinion you think they'll have that and a different one. We are at times a massive stereotype of ourselves. We stick 2 Rangers fans in the room and there'll be 3 supporters clubs by the end of the meeting. But we have throughputs that go through the Rangers fan base. Like, every one of us, whether you are incredibly like happy with the way things are going, or you're a complete cynic. Every one of us is driven by one thing, and that's success. That's all we care about as Rangers fans. Everything we do at Rangers must be to drive towards that success. And again, I say I'm privileged. Now, Rangers have done this and introduced MyGers, and we've put forward our season tickets this year at a time of great uncertainty and a global pandemic, and our fans have went and backed that. And they've not backed it because of the uncertainty that, like, a lot of normal people, if you were making a normal decision out with a football, you'd go, well, maybe I'll wait and see what the outcome. But as a fan, we don't make those decisions based on those. We make our decisions based on our loyalty to the club. Now, with that, there comes a great degree of responsibility from us who work at the club to make sure that we are doing all we can to ensure that faith from the fan base is well placed. And I like to think we do all we can to ensure that we do that. Obviously, not every decision is going to be perfect. Not every decision is going to be agreed with. But broadly speaking, the people at Rangers appreciate the fan base that we have. But obviously my role at the club is sort of dual as well, because I'm always the fan within the club that's saying that point and making sure it's thought about. And equally, I need to go out to, well, right now I'm speaking to you guys, so you put the club hat on and you always joke I'm always in an argument with somebody that way, but it really is a case of trying to balance everything off. But the massive fan base that we have will always bring issues, like, see if me and Natalie took every bit of feedback that came in, we could just, if we only had to come off one person saying something, we could have created this in any way we wanted, because we had every different kind of feedback. What you need to try and do is drill into the themes and the continued items that were coming up. And the reality is MyGers was demanded, maybe not in the exact way that people envisaged, but we needed change in ticketing. Like, that's a fact. If anyone argues with me otherwise, saying it was a great scheme, I'm sure we have literally thousands of fans who think it was a great scheme, but we have 10 times that who disagreed with it, and that's just the numbers. Like, we have such a large fan base and such a small allocation of tickets that we had to look at changing that. Now, whether that MyGers was the exact right thing to do, some will maybe disagree on that again, but I think broadly speaking, the principles behind what we've tried to achieve, they fit the focus groups that myself, Natalie and others at Rangers done. Like, those helped us come up with what we've eventually came up with. Now, again, coming back to something what you said before, this is a process. Like, we are not at the end, and until we have 6 months, a year worth of games where tickets are getting allocated every game, then I'm not confident in saying that this is exactly where we'll be next year, because we'll take that feedback on board, we'll look at it. Now, I'm hoping that like what we've done will work out good, but just be like, hope isn't the way you work on things. We work in facts and reality. So we'll take that feedback and we'll ensure that we do the best that we can for Rangers fans. That's what we're going to do. So I don't know if I answered everything you were saying, or really off on a wee tangent there, but if Natalie, you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think it's to echo your point about feedback and being central to everything we do as a club generally, but particularly with MyGers, that it is a new system. And I think what you were saying about the principles that underline MyGers, I think we're confident in all of those. Some of the technical detail and some of the operational detail will have to evolve over time, but MyGers was very much set up to help reward fan loyalty when it comes to accessing tickets and other moments. What we had to do though was balance that principle of rewarding loyalty without creating a system that can accidentally lock out lots of fans, particularly younger fans who don't have, track history with the club. So, MyGers, it was how do you create a loyalty tiering and situation like that helps to reward loyalty, because that's something that fans have been asking us to do for a long time. The random ballot process had a lot of critics, and and I can understand some of the criticism. So there had to be change and there had to be progression. But how do you reform ticketing whilst also not creating a purely loyalty driven system that accidentally blocks out certain fans from being able to access exciting games and exciting tickets? And that was very much something when we spoke to some clubs when we were thinking about how to develop membership. Clubs who have implemented a purely loyalty-based system where, the more points you have, the closer you are to the top and the more ticket access you have, that has made it a difficult environment for particularly younger fans to get on the ladder and get to finals and get to away games. So we wanted to do something that does have elements of loyalty feeding into how tickets are distributed, but the reason we created silver and bronze was to create windows of opportunity, so to speak, so that people within lower points brackets at the moment still can access tickets. And I think that's quite a useful point to actually talk about, in a forum like this, because I think unfortunately some people have seen gold, silver and bronze as a way that the club wants to divide the support or create artificial elitism or class systems, and it was honestly for the opposite reason, because the easiest thing to have done would have been to put all fans in one pot and rank everybody top to bottom and say, yeah, it's just the people at the top, we're only rewarding loyalty at the very, very top. In some ways that could have been easier, and it would have taken away criticism about us putting different fans in different tiers, but the tiers were actually enabled to allow fans who might be a bit further down the loyalty at the moment for lots of different reasons. Maybe you're a younger fan that's just started supporting the club, maybe you've only moved back to being close to Ibrox, there could be all different reasons, but the reason those levels were created was to actually still give people within lower tiers opportunity to games, so, and that's probably one of the things keen to address, because I think perhaps that principle's been lost a little. People think, the club only cares about you if you're gold. It's literally the opposite. The club cares about all fans, and the only way that we could give the sense of being able to go to games to every stage of points was to create different levels. But that's not to say it's perfect. As mentioned, that we will need to change things, and I think mentioned earlier in the call, maybe we create a blue tier that adds further refinement and further options within the scale that we have at the moment. But hopefully, it's putting us on the right track in how we can create better ways of distributing tickets and so on. So I've done the same thing as Greg. I've given a really long answer to probably a short question, but hopefully that gives some context, and that the methodology that took place when creating MyGers, that was some of the thinking that we had. Reward loyalty, but don't lock out other fans who might be further down.
I think Natalie's spot on there, and look, see in relation to our point about the rich get richer, if we go top down, our rivals across the city, they have that type of system, and through my role I deal with all the SLOs up and down the country. So John Paul Taylor, who's my counterpart over at Celtic, I know he has every bit the same problems that I used to have with our random ballot system. And now obviously Rangers fans and Celtic fans will know exactly the same, but in terms of numbers, they have a decent number that travel to away games similar to ourselves with the same allocations broadly. And if we created just the same system that we know is failing over there, then that's not us solving a problem. That's us just pushing a problem down the line for a couple of years. Yeah. And what we've done with this is it's bespoke to Rangers. It's unique across football, and with that, obviously, there's the risk that maybe we'll need to tweak it along the line and change it over time. But I'm quite proud that the club was bold enough to take that step. And to be fair to them, again, the club invested a decent amount in the research on this. It wasn't just something that's put together. Said previously, you could just put £20 away, scheme, and away you go. They thought hard about it, and it's interesting because obviously, if we're focusing just purely on ticketing, which MyGers is way more than just ticketing, so, and quite often that fuels the narrative again, because that's often what the fans, a lot of fans that join will have that in mind, right? And that is a key driver of it. None of us are naive to that, and therefore it's going to be it's probably the thing that dominated most of our thinking on it, isn't it, Natalie? Was this ticketing aspect, because it's one of the most important things.
It's so challenging, because you say that there's not a perfect system for as long as we have many more fans than we have tickets to offer, so there's never going to the perfect system is every fan who wants a ticket gets a ticket, and unfortunately that's just impossible. I wish it wasn't. I wish we did have the magic ticket machine that some people think that we do in the ticket centre. But
I get accused of having that at away games. But the reality is as well, is because we're really keen to talk about the wider parts of MyGers as well. But the ticketing is really important, and that's something we're always going to receive feedback on, because that is something we'll adapt and evolve over time and look at different aspects. But it is interesting that when you drill down into the numbers, the away scheme last year was, I think, 14,500 after a month or two. Yeah. And roughly about half of them have signed up to MyGers currently. So for me, that's not actually a negative. That sort of shows the system that we had in previously was being manipulated to a degree, which I think, see, any fan that knows in depth about the away scheme that we ran, we knew that. We knew it was because there was no barriers to entry, there was nothing in there, that it was always going to be open to that way. And to an extent, with the system we have, the number of fans that we have, you can't really blame fans for trying to get themselves access to tickets. So with this, what we're trying to do is put more tickets into the hands of fans who are looking to go to more things, and see if you do all our test numbers and details that we ran in every scenario, you should end up with more tickets if you're a gold member than you would have in a random ballot. Like, that's just true. Like, and again, silver should end up with more, bronze maybe less, but bronze can be built up over time as well, and that's part of the balance, isn't it? So I think we'd like to move on probably to the more wider stuff, but just to say that we are really open to the ticketing conversation. It's something that's ongoing. It will always be at the core, but really we need to get into the situation where we can actually have fans in the stadium before.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can even learn lessons that need to be learned going forward, you know.
I think MyGers is a wonderful scheme. I think listening to you guys, it's clear you're both very passionate about it, and I think the big thing for me, I can't speak for Tommy, but I'm sure he's along similar lines, it's heartening to know that the club are listening to the support. So if someone's brave enough to put their hand up and say, listen, I don't agree with this, there are ways that you could maybe make this better, stroke fairer, I think it's really good to listen to two guys at the forefront of it, saying, we're going to listen to what you've got to say.
I appreciate that.
So we're at a great time for a club just now. We're flying. Rangers are doing great just now. However, we are approaching a time when it's a bit of a solemn day, 2nd of January 1971, when 66 supporters lost their lives at the ground. I think it was a day that changed Scottish society in many different ways, but I think importantly it changed the way that football fans would go to the game for good, particularly travelling back and forward to Ibrox. Greg, 50 years on the 2nd of January 2021. I appreciate in the current climate it's going to be hard to do all the memorial services that you had perhaps planned maybe at the beginning of this year. What are the plans for that just now?
Look, it's really difficult. See, obviously myself, like I go to the services each year, again as part of the SLO role. Me, myself, Stuart McQuarrie, we spoke last year about all the plans that we could do, and we had meetings. Natalie was heavily involved, of course, as well, and with all these plans set up, and ultimately COVID's basically ensured that none of the initial plans that we had possible in any way, which is really, really unfortunate. The thing is the club can't really commit to anything right now because the situation's ever evolving. Mm-hmm. And therefore what we're seeking to do, and that's why the update came out the other day, was make sure like family members, survivors, and anyone who feels they wish to get in contact with the club, please do so now. Okay. Like, let's provide the feedback that you want, and hopefully that will help us shape the situation going forward. Now, we have a number of ideas, we have a number of scenarios running simultaneously. The reality is there's no point in committing to anything right now, because until we have clarity on what we have, you don't want to start saying, oh, we're going to do this, and then you end up slightly lower than that, and it seems like it's a disappointment. Yeah. And what I would say is you're right 100%. That day is the most important day in Rangers history. There is no one that will tell me otherwise. Now, obviously, all of us in this call are too young to have been there, but from a personal perspective, my dad was there that day. A friend of his was one of the ones who unfortunately passed away. Yeah. He was at the top of the stairs and met some of his friends and just happened not to go down that way. So if he didn't meet his friends there that day, I might not have been here. You know what I mean? And that's not to be dramatic or anything like that, but it's literally, it could happen to any Rangers fan. It could have happened to anyone, and that's a horrible, horrible thing. But over the last couple of days, I've spoken to a number of the family members, and there's so many really harrowing and upsetting stories. And I know that there's been some really good, like last year, the Heart and Hand lads, or was it 2 years ago, I think it was, Heart and Hand lads done a podcast that covered the memories of the Ibrox disaster, and I had to try to listen to it 4 different times and put it off because I was too upsetting at the time. Yeah. I mean, you eventually get through it, but it's such a horrible, horrible day that we as a club need to do all we can to ensure that those people get the appropriate level of respect. And remember, because you're right, they changed Rangers forever, they changed football forever. Indeed. And that their situation it'll be something that is carried with us. As I said, none of us are of that generation, but every one of us feels how important that is.
Yeah, Tommy, it's completely changed the way that we go to games now. Generally, it's completely changed our manner of going back and forward to Ibrox, hasn't it?
It has, and not to add too much to what you guys were saying there. The ripples of the sadness from that day actually had, and this shouldn't ever be forgotten, had a really positive benefit for future fans. There are fans absolutely out there who did get home based on some of the sacrifices that were made by Rangers fans, and that's a good point at the end of what was an incredibly tragic circumstance. I suppose the important thing to hear from Greg there, and I'm sure Natalie will back that up, is I think the support fully understands it's hard to commit to anything in the current landscape, such a rapidly changing world, but that the club are clearly, via the communication to people who have a real personal interest, and I'm sure there'll be further communications as we move closer to the anniversary. The club are very aware of their obligations as an institution and as the kind of office bearer of people's memories, to be reaching out and to be putting that front and centre of what they're doing at this point in time. And once they can commit, they will land on things. I suppose, going back to Greg and Natalie here, should people expect further communications and updates to allow them to understand that? Because I think the transparency of that's probably really emotive and important in this scenario.
Absolutely. As soon as we're in a position to be able to share more precise details on the commemorative activity, we'll certainly do so. At the moment, the only thing we can 100% commit to is we're exploring every possible opportunity for enhanced match day commemorative activity. Of course, we've got the Old Firm game that weekend, and it's at Ibrox, so there's a real opportunity there to do some additional commemorative activity. And then depending on COVID, depending on the match date itself, we'll also look at what we can do in terms of a service. Working with really difficult circumstances, unpredictable circumstances right now. For example, services at the moment are restricted to 50 people, so it's almost an impossible situation when we have 6 people who are directly affected and many, many more who weren't affected through family members they lost, but in different ways. So that's such a challenge, and it's such a kind of impossible and almost horrible position for us to be in, that we can't at this point, under 2 months away, say this is exactly what's happening. So it's a real shame that the pandemic's creating these circumstances. So the Always Remembered communication channel that launched this week is going to be really important to the planning and the activities. So if Always Remembered has an email address that can be used, so that's alwaysremembered@rangers.co.uk. So if you are somebody who is impacted by a disaster in many different ways, please feel free to use that as an opportunity to speak to the club in a considerate, discreet, if you would like, confidential way to share your experience and ideas for how we should commemorate the anniversary. Understandably, email might not be the preferred mode of contact for a subject nature of this type, or email just may not be somebody's thing. So we also have a phone number set up, and we also have a postal address. So please, if it's you're somebody who would like to get in touch with the club to share your experience or opinion and insight into how the club should commemorate, then please use that channel, and certainly the club is very keen to put that type of feedback at the heart of the activity. And although we can't share too many exact details of logistics, as soon as we can, we will, and absolutely that feedback will be central to it. So, but yeah, it's approaching very quickly. It's such an important date. It always is, but particularly with the 50th anniversary, we're very aware of the dignity and the standards and the scale that we should be aiming for this, and we'll do everything we can to ensure that it delivers on expectation. So thanks for giving us an opportunity through this forum to provide some awareness to Always Remembered, because I think that's a really important tool and channel for fans to have, and hopefully very soon we could come back on and give some more details around the activity.
Absolutely. Greg, this week the club have also announced the Team Talk initiative just in the last, in fact I think it was yesterday, maybe even this afternoon it came out, the Team Talk initiative. Would you fancy letting us know a little bit about that?
Well, obviously, it's a charity foundation will be running that, but like I think it's probably one of the things I'm most pleased about the charity foundation have done in my time at the club, and that I'm someone who is so proud of everything the charity foundation does. See, prior to working at Rangers, I was a little bit of your standard Rangers fan of the charity foundation do good work, but not really paying attention to it.
Till you get there.
The sea level of effort that goes into it, it's phenomenal, but it's something that has been a little bit of a while in the making. They've been working hard to try and get it into this position, but obviously, like, mental health and mental well-being is something that football clubs are in a privileged position to be able to tackle in a way that other people aren't. The demographic who's most affected by that it's adult males. I think is it under 40s. The reality is that's our demographic. That's our bread and butter fan. I mean, like everyone will know someone who's unfortunately suffered from mental health. And many people will have suffered from it. And part of these things is removing that stigma away. Football's again in a position to do that in a way that otherwise other organisations aren't. But so I'm really, really chuffed that the team at the Charity Foundation to be able to pull this one off. So see anyone that's looking to get involved in that, have a look at the club website that will link to it. The Charity Foundation will be on there too. But Rangers Charity at rangers.co.uk. If you email them, because of COVID guidelines right now, I think long term the idea would be it'd be a drop in. You don't need to announce it. You can just come in. But due to COVID, they're having to pre-book spaces, which again is not ideal in that situation, but it's better than that. But they have people there who can help you chat away, and the reality is you can just go along and you don't need to talk about anything that's upsetting or anything like that. You can just go and be there and be present. I know from first-hand experience, speaking to people that have been on it, that the football fans and training course that the Charity Foundation do, which is by far the most popular course that they do. Sadly, I'm not yet 35, so I've not been able to piggyback on it and lose a bit of weight. But, once that hits, I'll be on that. Assuming I get accepted. I know that guys that go there and just feel part of something, and the reality is the majority of the guys go because it's at Ibrox and just want to go down and go being involved. And the guys say that their mental health vastly improves there, and that they get fitter and everything like that. So see something that's specifically targeting mental health, but it's at Ibrox. For me, that will just get so many people who otherwise would be sitting in their own shells, not really thinking about even try to get help. It'll get them out of that. So I think the guys deserve massive applause for that. I really, really do. Indeed. And this week, it just seems one thing after another. Some really good stuff happening at Rangers right now, and the Charity Foundation are a big, big part of that. Yeah,
great time for the Charity Foundation, of course. Last weekend having simply the best night in, and the generosity of Rangers football fans never fails to amaze me. Just under £60,000 raised in 3 hours last Saturday night.
This is something I see very regularly, right? But see if you set a marker by Rangers fans, we'll beat it. Like what we do, like we are phenomenal that way. Like, I mean, it is literally anything. Like we looked to MyGers, like no one would have thought we'd have hit over 26,000 during a global pandemic. Season ticket holders 46,500. I mean, let's be honest, like none of us would have predicted that.
No,
none of us. But even then, we were all having debates inside and like sort of thing, and I went quite high, but I was miles off it. I was one of the highest ones, and we still beat it. And the thing is, as well, it's across the board. Everything you do, you look at the Castro kit sales numbers, phenomenal. Like everything is unreal. But that's our fan base, and you know what? It comes back to something that we said earlier, because we demand success and we drive towards that success. So seeing everything we do, we'll be the best at it. We want to be that. And sometimes, as club employees, it can mean that our fan base are a little bit harsh at times on things. But you know what? It's part and parcel of being at Rangers. You need to deal with that, and you need to try and be the best. And you know what? I think all of us would rather it was that way than the other way. So,
I always remember a famous quote by Souness, and I'm maybe paraphrasing a little bit, when he arrived to Ibrox, and he said the second was absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And I think as you sort of grow older with that quote, it's something that resonates you every season as it passes.
Yeah, I think
like Souness throwing away the second place medals and runner-up medals and things like that. You know, that's a big part of his psyche, and it represents the club. So.
Indeed.
And like, to be fair though, that is why Graham Souness is a Rangers icon. Like, that is why he's treated in a regard. The only person I think that I know that's treated in any way the same regard as Graham Souness is you've got John Gregg and you've got Walter Smith.
Yeah.
See the way the fans sort of revere them, and obviously we've got our icons that we love and adore, but the guys are different. They are like the statesmen of Rangers Football Club. And obviously we had two of them on Rangers TV earlier this year for the Galatasaray game, and I must admit I was very, very chuffed for that.
So are the subscribers, let me tell you. Natalie, I'm going to come at you next. Obviously, recently we've seen footage of Edmiston House completely disappear as plans for the 150th anniversary of the football club begin to take shape. I appreciate there may be things you can or cannot say. Is there anything you can maybe give us for what we can expect for that big period of time?
Yeah, so it's such an exciting anniversary on the horizon. It's two anniversaries almost, because our 150th is March 2022. Of course, just after that, in May 2022, it'll be 50 years since that famous night in Barcelona. So what an exciting, period of anniversaries and events that are just round the corner. So we're very proud and honoured to be, approaching those anniversaries. When you think about it, we're so far ahead of some other clubs, and we are the first major club to be hitting 150 years. You look at Leeds last season, it was their centenary. Clubs in the Premier League like West Ham are 125 this season. When we're 150, Real Madrid are 120. So we are so far ahead, and it's such a privilege and a special time for all of us as Rangers fans to celebrate the 150 years. So one of the things that when we started to talk to fans about what should our anniversary season and how should it be shaped, and fans were very vocal and very passionate about the 150 years should not just be one game, it should not just be 1 month, it needs to be a full campaign of celebration. So for us as a club, that will be season 21-22. So we'll open with quite a big bang when it comes to the anniversary next summer. So there'll be elements of that will be the anniversary themed kits. So it's a good opportunity to say thank you again to MyGers members, because a little while ago we asked MyGers members for inspiration and ideas for anniversary kits, and the response we had to that was fantastic. It was great. Some people had really put in so much detail and thought. People shared with us CADs, they shared with us collages of kits that they think we should develop. We had some great ones from little kids.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Natalie. I won't do it again.
So the anniversary kits will be a massive feature of the anniversary season. That will coincide with our summer launches, and in the summer, all going well, we'll have some very exciting games as well to announce to fans. We're working very hard behind the scenes for some exciting friendlies. Of course, COVID has been a big spanner in the works with that as well, and we don't know what the world's going to look like next week, never mind next summer in March 2022. But given how important this anniversary is, and given the scale that we want to achieve, at the moment we're still working on best case scenario, in a full year of impressive events and activities for fans to be involved with. As you say, Edmiston House is such an exciting project, and work is underway to regenerate and redevelop that, and that represents so much in terms of how Rangers is ready for the future. That Edmiston House with museum, a state-of-the-art fan zone that we've wanted for so long, a state-of-the-art retail space, which will all just be fantastic things that will benefit all types of fans, because that's what the anniversary has to be as well. It has to be allowing fans from all around the world, and young fans, old fans, family groups, people on their own. There should be something for everybody when it comes to the anniversary season, and that's very much the objective. So it will be a full year worth of celebration, so to speak, and we'll start to provide a bit more detail around that in terms of hopefully games and activities and events, hopefully from about March 21. Hopefully by then the world looks a little bit more normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
A bit more stable in terms of what we can do. But that's also a nice time to talk about the anniversary, because it will be 1 year exactly until March 2022, which is our big birthday month. And I spoke about some of the other clubs that have recently had anniversaries, and like Leeds, for example, their centenary last season. We looked very closely at some of the things they did, and some of the things they did in relation to where the club was founded. We took some inspiration from that. We're very lucky. We have such a brilliant story in terms of how Rangers was founded. 4 young lads who had a dream. They didn't have a ball. There's activities and commemorative activity almost that we can do around that to kickstart things. There's so many amazing and impressive eras and moments as a club that we can celebrate. So there's lots to come. There'll be VIP events, there'll be family events, there'll be fan zones, there'll be events for fans all around the world. There'll be events that happen at Ibrox, there'll be ones that happen elsewhere in Glasgow. So yeah, as much I would love to share more detail, and actually the main reason is just COVID. I would hate to say, yeah, we're doing this and that, and something else happens, but there's lots going on. But again, although we are very much advancing at pace with our anniversary plans, if there's feedback and if there's ideas that fans want to share, again, we're totally open and receptive to ideas around that, because the 150th is so important. As I say, we're the first major club to be hitting that milestone, so there's almost a responsibility as a club to do it with us. We need to do that, and as fans, we've had challenging years and challenging seasons, so I think we all deserve a very special anniversary season to look forward.
Absolutely. Tommy, we've said since the start of the season that on our weekly pod that it's a really exciting time to be a Rangers fan. We're saying that because it's going to be 55 this year, let's be brutally honest, but I think listening to Natalie and Greg speak there, Natalie's really spoke up the celebrations that are going to lead from just into next year. The fans will get absolutely swept away with this. It's going to be a really good time.
Totally. I started to sit forward there. I'm part of this conversation, and I started to get more exciting, like I was listening to. I think everything's coming into place there, right? So we're really good on the pitch, which is the big driver. I think Greg mentioned that earlier on. Everything comes from that. But there's also a sense of everything's going in the right direction for Rangers, and we're now back to comporting or managing our own affairs in the way that's really responsible and expected of the premier sporting institution in the country. And so things like appropriately approaching a loyalty programme, appropriately approaching a milestone anniversary, appropriately approaching the uplift of some of the fan engagement stuff as well, and then and something that's sometimes missed as well, whilst we do things like the museum and the and these types of things, we're uplifting the local area as well, and people forget that Rangers, first and foremost, back to those 4 lads, is a community club, and we've always looked out for our own city. It gets overlooked sometimes that we put a lot of money back into the city and back into the country as well. The only kind of ending part of that, because it is really exciting, and I'm trying to keep myself grounded, because that's not my usual way, but is I don't envy the people who have to pick from the tapestry of triumph that we have and say those are the bits that we'll talk about within the anniversary. So really excited to see where we go with that, what we do with it. I think I'm like every fan, really, really excited to see the plans once they're able to be landed.
Yeah.
And in relation to that point of picking from the tapestry of success and history, our club archivist Joe Morrison was speaking to me the other day. Me and him had a wee bit of catch up, and he was David Mason, our club historian, and him are obviously in constant dialogue in relation to the upcoming museum, so very, very exciting. And he listed off, I can't even remember the number, it's 10 or 15 most important games in our history. And we got to the end of it, and it's like, we need more. Like, there's a listed number, and I'll not reveal which match was missing, but there's a match missing that I went straight away and he said, I said the same. It's hard though, because obviously your first league, your first Scottish Cup, your first trebles, then every treble year it deserves recognition, and it just goes on, and like, but that's the job of the guys, isn't it? That's what they need to do, is try and pick that out. But that's also something as well, as we talk about MyGers being dynamic, which is totally true, but the museum's going to be dynamic and modular as well, and you can take different focuses at different times and adapt and change, and like one of the things that's unfortunately not happened this summer though probably down in the average Rangers fans' priority is we were going to do a little feature on the European Championships at Ibrox in relation to Rangers players, and it's been quite cool because it was basically taking the tour at Ibrox but with a twist on it, and new ideas and going in and stuff like that's getting developed, and it would have been a driver for revenue because people would want to come in and see it. But from my perspective, I was just keen to see what the guys were able to pull out, and it's a wee shame that didn't happen. But maybe next season, assuming it's all normal, we'll be able to have little elements of that. But what Natalie alluded to earlier about our origins, and I think that's something that we should never forget. Rangers were founded to basically be the best. That's what the guys wanted to be. Like, obviously, you get the Moonlighters nickname and everything that goes back into it. Anyone that's not done the Founders Trail should do it because it's fascinating. But like, we had a team of young guys who were just desperate to be the best, and that's how we got to be the biggest club in the country, the biggest club in the world. That you can argue with our success, you know. Mm-hmm. But like, that's a phenomenal origin that we should never forget, because the identity of Rangers fans, that's still it. We just want to be the best, and everything we do is to push ourselves to be better. Like, everything else is noise. Like, we just want to be the best, and we want to dominate Scottish football and beyond. And you know what? It's been a long, long time, but we're getting there. I love my advanced stats. You look at your XGs and all that and everything like that. We're playing brilliant. Like, we look like we're playing brilliant on the eye, but the underlying numbers show that we're performing. Now, we need to ensure that we can do that across the rest of the season. And now we're actually talking about football. We're definitely out with my professional expertise.
Well, you're in good company then. We're all very good.
The reality is, and again, like, I'll do my corporate selling stuff. See, because the fans have backed the team in the way that they have, and look, that's where a massive caveat that we owe an awful lot to this board who have invested money in the club consistently over the last few years, and that deserves a massive amount of respect. Take away the fact that obviously they're sort of my bosses, but that aside, they deserve massive respect for being able to do that, and they're doing that because the vast majority of them are massive Rangers fans. Now, we have some non-Rangers fans involved in the mix there, which keeps us pushing towards excellency, which again, that's what we want. But the reality is without the Rangers fans being there and backing the club in the way that we've done, we wouldn't have the squad that we have now. We wouldn't have been able to maintain that squad over this global pandemic. That's a fact. That's why Ross Wilson's saying that MyGers is important and going to help us improve these kind of things. That's the reality of the situation, is that individually it's a small contribution, but collectively it's a massive contribution, and that's what we have. We are a collective powerhouse. And at times it frustrates me that in Scottish football, I think at Rangers we do a good job of fan engagement, but in general in Scottish football we don't. Yeah. Like, it's part of my role at the club. I've never spoken to the SFA or SPFL other than some stuff to do with making sure that they check out the SFA, ensures that I'm doing my SLO role, which is great and fine. We've got some other organisations, but at Rangers, I think that's central. What we need to do is ensure that fans feel that the club cares about us, because like, we do. That's a fact. Like, Rangers genuinely cares about our fan base. But sometimes if it doesn't feel like that, it doesn't matter if you care. So you need to do all you can to do that. And over the last 3.5 years that I've been at the club, I've seen that improvement, and I felt that myself. I felt as now we're in a better position now. I feel better. Like, I speak to fans, I'm able to give more examples of it when someone's feeling a bit down. I mean, like, everybody has a time where they just, like, something goes wrong and they feel a bit disillusioned with something, and sometimes Rangers comes under that, and quite often, if the guys are really angry enough, I'll be the one and then do a phone call. And I'm confident that we've got enough ammunition within what the club does to show that the club cares, and that will continue. And that's not to take it for granted, because you can never rest on your laurels at Rangers Football Club again. It's about striving for excellence. And my belief is that we need to push towards and use the circumstances to try and provide the best fan engagement experience that we can do, and ultimately try and get that level of expertise. Now, in my job, I'm able to do a little bits to help towards that, but you need the whole club to back you, and my belief is that the club is there, and that's what we're striving towards. So I'm really, really encouraged. I'm a lucky guy to be SLO at Rangers. Now, obviously, I'm a Rangers fan. I wouldn't be SLO anywhere else. I'm not interested in any other football club. You know, we're all Rangers fans. That's the way it is. Absolutely. But I can tell you what, there's a lot of SLOs and a lot worse situations in various different clubs across the country and beyond. Like, I'm very lucky that we've got guys that genuinely care about the fan base there, and long may that continue.
So, Natalie, I'm going to give you the last word before I let you guys disappear. Tommy and I and other guys on the This Is Ibrox podcast have spoken quite often, really, in the last couple of weeks, how there seems to be a positivity and a general change of mentality in the guys that we see doing the bread and butter stuff. I get the impression from listening to you two that positivity and that sort of can-do and will-do mentality is transferred all around the staff that you don't see with Rangers Football Club. Is that a sort of fair assumption this year, do you think? Is there a change on?
Yeah, that's spot on. I think that, relentless desire to win and succeed, it's very much evident on the pitch, but it's something that runs through the club at every level. So, we're committed to success, and success, all roads lead to success on the pitch, but everybody behind the scenes is very committed and very passionate to do the best that we can for Rangers at all times. So very exciting. The club's going through a lot of different transformations. There was the visual identity change that happened in the summer with the new ready dress and brand guidelines. That really helped us to be a much more digitally native brand that works well on websites, and we've got our app coming soon, and we've got lots of exciting things that way. So we're constantly evolving whilst doing that in a way that is careful and considerate to traditions and what we're all about, but we're very focused on the future, we're focused on growth and expanding Rangers and making us all stronger. So yeah, it's that desire to win that the team have is very much echoed by every other department at Rangers as well. And to highlight what Greg said, it's it's a privilege to be at Rangers and and play my own part and play as part of a wider team as well to lead to success.
Yeah,
well done.
Just for context, guys, Natalie is as big a Rangers fan as you'll find. Like genuinely, I sometimes have to ask myself if I should just ask Natalie to do some of my stuff. Always coming out with something staunch.
Well, listen, guys, I really appreciate you coming. Sorry, Greg, carry on.
I just wanted to finish off by thanking you guys for having us on.
You're very welcome.
Really appreciate that. We're obviously, again, over time things change. Now, what we're trying to do is, again, be more open, transparent. From my own perspective, I'm now part of communications as well as operations, which is a change that's, I think, sort of fits within what the SLO dialogue is. Again, the majority of people slag me off on Twitter, so I may as well include that as within my title, But genuinely, what we're trying to do is be as open, transparent as possible, especially during a time where it's hard. No one can just pop into Ibrox and see you or jump over and see you at a game.
Yeah.
I think it's essential that we take all inroads in there, and we know you guys are relatively new in the scene, but you're doing quite well. So good on you.
Thanks.
It's a decent time to jump on the Rangers podcast. To be fair, I can understand maybe missing it during the
It's amazing what lockdown will drive you to.
But look, guys, the more Rangers content, the better. I think that's we're thriving on, and that's something that we as a fan base, we're all interested in ourselves. That's where we are, and there's a broad spectrum. We've spoke to you guys, we've spoke to another couple of guys, and now everyone has done a cracking job. And you know what? Our doors are always open. If you wish to get in contact over anything, we'll maybe not pop on every time. I don't want to become just another podcast guy. I don't think I've got enough to say. I get by having a rant about something at some point, but we just to reiterate, we do appreciate it, and thanks to all you guys and your listeners.
Really enjoyable, and I hope it's been informative for your listeners. I hope you guys have enjoyed it as much as me and Greg have, and certainly would love to jump back on when there's more exciting developments to talk about, and that will be sooner rather than later, I'm sure.
Indeed. Thanks very much for joining us and giving us all the great stuff you've told us tonight. Really appreciate it. Tommy, we will catch up next week. Greg, Natalie, I think I can honestly say you're welcome back anytime you like. You'll be very welcome.
Yeah, guys.
Thanks.
You're the best.
Proud, like an animal, something so